Hare Krishna, Har Har Mahadev. The Vedas have a divine magical aura enveloping them. Therefore, only individuals who have risen above mundane distractions and dissipation may be able to glean some guidance from Vedic wording. Consequently, attempts by suited-booted scholars around the world undertaking mercenary research, sitting around a table with one eye fixed on the Vedic text, while the other keeps roving over considerations of pay, promotions, prerogatives, privileges, jealousies, and perquisites, can only lead to absurd, childish, incoherent, inconsistent, meaningless abracadabra. That is why even hereditary reciters of the Vedas never even attempt any elucidations of the wording they recite. Their job is just to keep alive and preserve the recitation tradition, so that once in a while gifted atmas, means liberated personalities, may from time to time detect and isolate some divine principles from it. That millions of families throughout the world have down the ages been devoting themselves hereditary to nothing but Vedic recitation in abstemious, pious, modest isolation, sense, incentive, or dictatorial compulsion is a very eloquent proof of the divine origin of the Vedas. Another indication is that the Vedas form the basis of that primordial, pious, worldwide culture of which Sanskrit language, the Upanishads, Puranas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and all ancient sciences and arts are nostalgic sprouts. Modern scholars often use the term Vedic times in a very nebulous, indeterminate manner. Most feel very safe in clinging to the imperial Max Mullerian view that the Rig Veda was composed around 1200 BC and the other three Vedas were composed at an average 200 years interval thereafter. But the question is, composed by whom? Composed by whom? They have no answers. A few scholars who have felt free from time to time to expose divergent conclusions have tried to push back the date of the origin of the Vedas to 5,000, 10,000, or 20,000 years. These latter groups of scholars don't make it clear whether the four Vedas were composed together at one time as a single entity or as separate compendiums at different times. But they all seem to be totally wrong, not in one but in a number of respects. For example, number one, since the Vedas were necessitated by the human creation on this globe, they are as ancient as humanity itself. That means about 2000 million years. Number two, since the Vedas were divided into four compendiums in the Dwapara era by sage Vyas, they constituted basically a single undivided text for the earlier two eras. Number three, since it is the Vedas which have sprouted the Vedic civilization, it is wrong to imagine that the Vedas constitute the mindless mutterings of some wandering cowherds. Number four, as the Vedas have sprouted a very holy, erudite, and idealistic civilization, attributing some frivolous, superficial meaning to Vedic text is the height of scholastic thoughtlessness and stupidity or intellectual rascaldom. The current belief among scholars about the origin of zero is very hazy. The present notion is that the zero was introduced to Europeans by Arabs who picked it up from Bharat But nobody knows how, when, and why. Everybody just takes that blunt statement for granted without any cross questioning. Why should Arabs be middlemen? Could not Bharatiyas or Sanatani Aryans directly coach Europeans if at all? Or could not Europeans reach Bharat? Moreover, whenever one talks of Arabs in modern academics, one always imagines them to have been Muslims from the beginning of time. But as Muslims, Arabs had lost all erudition. On being forced to turn Muslim, Arabs, Iranians, Turks, one after the other plunged into illiteracy and took to murder, massacre, and mayhem. It was in pre-Muslim and pre-Christian times that Vedic culture and Sanskrit language pervaded the whole world since the beginning of time. That Sanskrit education and Vedic knowledge included every detail from zero to infinity. But since Europe got converted first, it was forced to shun all Vedic education. Thereafter, Europeans thirsting for knowledge had to repair to Arab lands just across the Mediterranean, where Vedic academics still flourished for about 300 years, until lights of Vedic education were blown out there too, and West Asia also got steeped into Islamic ignorance and turmoil. So, Christianity and Islam, one after the other, reduced all Vedic learning in the lands that they swept to zero to such an extent that they even lost all knowledge of zero itself. That zero has been part of Vedic calculations from the very beginning of time may be judged from the fact that the meticulous accuracy of Vedic recitation is sought to be maintained by the strict count of the 10 mandalas. 1017 suktas. Suktas means formulas. 10580 mantras. Mantras means hymns. 1,53,826 words and 4,32,000 letters in the Rig Veda, for instance. The whole Vedic world was used to that meticulous Vedic count in pre-Muslim and pre-Christian times. All that learning, along with the use of zero, was reduced to a zero by Christianity and Islam. Since Vedic learning, including mathematics, survived in Bharat in the form of Hinduism, despite Muslim and Christian inroads, the belief spread that non-Indians learned the use of zero from Bharat. That has to be understood in the limited sense that Muslim and Christians learned the use of zero from Bharat only after their conversion had reduced them to illiteracy. In pre-conversion times, they were all an integral part of the Vedic world and as up to date in Vedic Sanskrit learning as Bharat. Today, Bharat appears to be the original repository of Vedic knowledge only because other lands lost touch with Vedic learning progressively from the time of the Mahabharata war and totally after conversion to Islam or Christianity. Aiming at ensuring a smooth, bearable existence for all beings, Vedic culture built up a psychologically planned social structure. 5 norms of conduct were enjoined on every member of the society. These were: number 1, Satya means truth; number 2, Ahimsa meaning non-killing, non-harming, non-violence; number 3, Asteya means non-stealing, non-grabbing, non-misappropriating; number 4, Aparigraha, not claiming ownership or possession of any worldly things or property; Number 5, Brahmacharya. This last requirement is usually translated as celibacy. Actually, it implies observance of strict rules of conduct in consonance with laws of nature, as per one's age, status, and social standing. These qualities eliminated any motivation for social or individual strife. To inculcate the above qualities in every member of society, a joint family system was put in vogue, where it was a corporate life with the raw youngsters learning and taking over smoothly from experienced elders. Such a family ensured division of labor, expertise of the elders, loving nurture of the very young and very old, guarantee of economic sustenance for every individuals, good engaging company for all, and an engrossing mass attention and attendance because of a large number of coming and goings, of a plethora of friends, relations, and acquaintances on frequent functions, celebrations, and get togethers. Vedic culture envisages two distinct spheres for males and females, not out of any considerations of inferiority or superiority, but with a view to ensure the fruition of their lives and careers in the context of their physiology and psychology. A woman has her menses, conceptions, and deliveries. Being delicate and attractive, all and sundry cast covetous glances at her. She also likes to adorn her body. Taking all such peculiarities of the female into consideration, Vedic culture has ensured for the woman the role of the empress of the home. When a bride is ushered into her marital home, the Vedic priest actually utters the words Samrajñi Bhava, means be the queen of this new household. She is, of course, the apprentice queen under the other elder queens who have preceded her in the household. In such a family setting, the woman is safe from the gazes of strangers. She has social occasions and company galore to show herself off in all her finery and charm, and generally spends her time in congenial company. Contrarily, the mere male, with his rough, tough, and blunt nature, and no great physiological handicaps, is supposed to cope with the hurly-burly of the outside world. In the aftermath of the Mahabharata war and later imposition of Christianity, Westerners gradually drifted away from the Vedic norms of conduct and adopted the drink and dance and mixing of the sexes type of life from the school stages onwards, with the result that in the USA teenage free sex and wife swapping is getting common and is resulting in enormous crime, spread of incurable diseases such as AIDS, and misery to vulnerable sections such as old men, children, and women. Considering all this, Vedic arranged marriages have proved the best bulwark against breakup of homes and families. A British group of educationists has taken a laudable step in reassuring Vedic values in Western society. It has set up 4 schools. Number 1, St. James Independent School for junior boys. Number 2, St. James Independent School for senior boys, and 2 similar schools for girls, ruling out co-education because the needs, reflexes, requirements, and emotive responses of male and female minds are different, and made Sanskrit a compulsory subject of study for every standard from primary to the A level. That pattern needs to be adopted all over the Christian and Muslim countries to resurrect their Vedic heritage. But they, particularly the Muslims, will not do this because of their religious compulsions. A system of visual self-certification is a part of Vedic culture. For instance, every household has to be swept and cleaned yearly every morning. And as an assurance to everybody concerned, a prominent artistic geometric pattern is drawn just outside the entrance in white stone powder with at times some color added. It is known as Rangavali alias color design. Absence of such a design in front of any house usually indicated some calamity such as mourning, disease, or destitution. The design at the entrance signified that the household had been swept and cleaned for the daily routine of the inmates and welcome visits by others. Every individual, too, wear a mark on his or her forehead between the eyebrows after bath to assure others of his or her physical cleanliness. To begin the day's chores, an adolescent girl looking forward to marriage and married women both wear a red vermilion dot on their foreheads. To distinguish between them, a married woman further wears a Mangal Sutra, means auspicious necklace of tiny black beads and gold around her neck and silver rings on her toes. That made the distinction clear between the married and yet to be married. A woman wearing a plethora of green bangles or a green sari or blouse was a mark of pregnancy, so that she should be accorded the conveniences and considerations that her physical status demanded. A widow was known by the absence of the vermilion dot on her forehead, so that her well-wishers may help her find a new spouse. Vedic culture has farsightedly provided such visual signs for smooth functioning so that everyone may receive community help and cooperation that his or her situation demands, without anyone having to ask any question or solicit explicit help. Such provisions ensured Vedic society functioning like a well-oiled machine, sans fuss and sans noise. The Mangal Sutra, literally the holy thread, also implicitly proclaimed that the wearer, being a married woman, the sanctity of her moral tie-up with her husband was not to be violated by any amorous advances or aberrations. Vedic chanting is a lifetime profession involving meticulous expertise and whole-time hereditary dedication. Women transplanted into other families by marriage, engaging in household chores such as sweeping, grinding, cooking, nurture of babies, and preparing for and participating in social functions, etc., and with physiological digressions such as menses, conceptions, deliveries, and childcare cannot be envisaged to ever qualify for whole-time professional Vedic recitation. Moreover, Vedic chanting is not child's play, like picking up a book and reading out a nursery rhyme. Vedic chantings took different forms to yield profound secrets pertaining to different sciences. Such expertise in recitation needed full-time dedication, say for 12 to 20 years at a stretch. At the preceptor's hermitage, where only males were sent from the age of 5 or 8. Since such an upbringing was impossible for a woman, womanhood was considered a disqualification. It is wrong to read into that taboo any discrimination against a woman's persona or her intelligence. Here I am going to read a report which appeared in the Times of India, a daily newspaper, published from Mumbai, dated March 22, 1993. It reads, quote, "Computer scientists are now beginning to realize that all their endeavor over the last 5 decades into making natural language accessible to computer programming was already done about 2600 years ago. Though much removed in time, space, and culture, a 7th century BC Sanskrit grammarian seems to have provided all the answers to today's computer problems. The grammarian Panini is now being called the first software man without the hardware, and the focus is on the roughly 4000 rules of Sanskrit grammar that he evolved. Rules that are so scientific and logical in manner that they closely resemble structures used by computer scientists throughout the world. Sadly, the link between artificial intelligence and Panini's grammar was discovered in faraway America by a NASA scientist called Mr. Rick Briggs. Scientists over the years had been bogged down by ambiguities in natural languages, and efforts into computer processing were proving too difficult until Mr. Briggs discovered Sanskrit. Since then, millions of dollars have been pumped into research, with many Western countries doing extensive work on the subject. How does Panini's grammar work? Grammar is an abstraction of the language. As a rule, grammar is usually written after a language has developed. Sanskrit has other forms of grammar, but Panini's is the only one which, with only 4000 rules, successfully covers almost the entire range, and each word under the Panini grammar can be tracked back to its root, quite akin in form and essence to computer languages like, say, COBOL or Fortran. Unquote. So, this was the report published in Times of India in 1993. So, my dear viewers, by tradition, Sanskrit is a God-made language. The Vedas, which constitutes a codified book of knowledge, are of divine origin. Their language, Sanskrit, is therefore not of human origin. That is why it is of mathematical precision described earlier. Panini is the master tabulator of Sanskrit, but not the originator of the language. Even computer hardware must have existed in Vedic culture, as may be deduced from Bhrugu Samhita and Nadi Granthas, which record the life predictions of billions of born and unborn individuals, deduced from their horoscopes, worked out from the permutations and combinations of the 30 degrees of each of the 12 houses, the 12 zodiacal signs, the 9 planets and 24 hours constituting the diurnal cycle. The other possibility could be that those horoscopes and their life forecasts were spelled out by gifted Trikaladarshi minds which could see the past, present, and future. Dr. Subhas Kak, a computer scientist at the Louisiana State University, USA, has discovered an ancient astronomical code embedded in the Rig Veda. The code reveals the Earth-Sun and Earth-Moon distances and the solar year to be of 3 crores 64 lakhs 24,675 days or 364,24675 days, a remarkably accurate value. The astronomical code reinforces our conclusion that the Vedas, far from being rustic mutterings as has been assumed by scholars tutored in the Western view, are a conglomerate of codified cosmic scientific formulas. An analysis of the code in Rig Veda reveals that the sun is 108 sun diameters away from the earth, while the moon is 108 moon diameters away from the earth. Modern astronomical studies believe the actual figures to be 107.6 for the sun and 110.6 for the moon. Maybe modern calculations are imperfect. Incidentally, this cosmic mathematical detail explains the preponderance of figures 8, 108, 1008, etc. in Vedic social and spiritual practices. Please like the videos, subscribe the channel and give your valuable opinion in the commentary section. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.